I play with energy because it's fun. It's fun to see things appear in my experience, in my reality bubble, that morph or adjust or dissolve because I choose to focus in a different way, because I choose to interact with whatever appears in a different way, whether it's a person or an object or a pet, it doesn't really matter. It's fun to see the power of my own awareness. It's fun to interact with my world as just patterns of light and information, as just energy bubbles and energy forms that will resonate and spin differently because of how I choose to interact with them. And my first toy or my first tool really was just plain old meditation. It was when I started turning inward. It was when I started turning the focus of my awareness inside that I began to notice that things around me, people around me, started behaving differently. And just that experience alone really opened my understanding of what this world is and my role within it. How I show up in the world can influence what's around me or who's choosing to engage with me. And then from there I started playing with different modalities. First it was Reiki and learning to use the hand to direct energy, learning to use the mind to direct energy in a certain way. And then that expanded to sort of the tools of quantum mechanics, where you're no longer just trying to change what appears, but rather you're tuning into a completely different possibility entirely. So, with things like matrix energetics and other similar models of transformation like that, it just became more fun. It just became more amplified. So now when something appears to arise in my experience, when someone shows up in my reality bubble, there's more magic to it. There's no longer this belief, this parameter, this limitation that says, this is how it appears to be. This person is as, how they're presenting themselves to be, or the situation is how it appears to be. Now there's a flexibility of consciousness where you look at what's showing up and going, I know there's a different dimension to this. I know that there is a different angle from which I can experience this. So the whole playground of energy work or energy transformation has opened the doorway to experience reality in a completely different way. And all this is really to say that, you don't necessarily need a facilitator like me to experience change or transformation. It's a limitation you impose upon yourself to believe that you need something or someone outside of you to bring about the outcomes that you desire. No matter what the situation is, no matter what the scenario facing you is, if you begin to interact with it from this perspective that you are energy and it too is energy, and by changing the rotation of your own field, by changing the spin of your own consciousness, you can experience this seemingly solid or manifested experience differently, that it can not only change or transform, but completely dissolve from your reality as though it was never there to begin with. It's something that you can do all on your own. It's something that you can do by opening up to the possibility that you can do that without the limitation of really needing something or someone outside of you. So how do you do that? How do you play with your world like that? And it's by beginning right now. Look at whatever appears to be happening in your experience. Bring up whatever scenario seems to be a point of contrast for you right now. And the first thing that you do is recognize that you, who appears to be observing or looking at this pattern, are a field of light and information. And this pattern that you're observing is also a field of light and information. and just marinate just in that initial perception, just that initial awareness. Let yourself sort of dwell in that. Okay, if what I am is a field of light and information, if what I am is a field of energy, and if what that thing I think I'm experiencing is also just a field of energy, then what could this become? What could I become? What could this entanglement become? And by asking yourself that question from that point of perception, you give yourself the window to experience something different. You give yourself the window to enter into a different reality altogether. It really only works when you start playing with it in this way. You can amass all the information there is to amass about this being a vibrational world, about this being, a multidimensional vibrational reality. But that information is useless to you until you start actually putting it to practice, until you start taking bits and pieces of your reality and playing with them to see what would happen. You kind of have to be a scientist in your own experience. You kind of have to be, experimenting to see if the information that you're receiving is valid and applicable in your own world. And for me, that's really what it's about. It's really about playing in my playground. It's about a willingness to experience things from different angles in my own reality bubble. And like I said, I use so many different toys, from Reiki symbols and, to visualizations, to a meditation, to, completely dissolving what I think is actually happening in the moment. I use numberless tools based on whatever's showing up for me in the moment, based on whatever is occurring for me to play with in the moment. So give yourself the flexibility of experience and give yourself the flexibility of tools so that you can really have fun in your experience. You can really have fun in your world while bringing about your desired outcomes and experiences.